You're listening to Packers Talk Network. PackersTalk.com.
You're listening to No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Radio Network, your home for in-depth and thoughtful Packers analysis. I'm your host, Gil Martin. My co-host is my good friend, Sean Tehan. In addition to this show, I write for the Packers Post and Cheesehead TV. And Sean was a TV sportscaster in Minnesota. We're here to talk Packers because you're all here for one thing, and that's a love for Green Bay football. Sean, OTAs still ongoing, starting to get closer to the end of it. But before we get a deep dive into that, how about a word from our sponsor?
Yep, we're getting close to that season. And before we get started, a few words about our own sponsor, Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packer fans. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. For direct links to specific Packers game tickets, go to PackersTalk.com/tickets or browse their website at theticketking.com. OTAs week 3, it's pretty much in the books. It's almost ready. We're almost ready to go and getting close to training camp. And it's just interesting to hear all the little whispers and storylines that are coming out of OTAs. We haven't even put pads on yet, Gil. We're not even close to real football, but it gets you excited and it gets you talking with some of the buzz going around at Packers OTAs so far this month.
Yeah, and it's a good way to start, building the foundation of this team for the upcoming season. Right now, you're really just installing concepts and trying to teach them to some of the players, especially the younger guys. Although, let's face it, this whole team is more or less younger guys. So, what is there, one player over 30 on this roster right now?
Yep, and I believe that's Preston Smith. That's it.
That is correct. So, this is a young group of guys, and it's great to see the competition that's going to be out there and also how much less unsettled this team is than it was a year ago.
Yeah, and last year, too, it was a very young group, and it was all in on the youth movement. And then the young guys, it clicked a lot faster than it should when it comes to the NFL. And it just got us leaving us wanting more. All I think is Seinfeld, when George Costanza gets everyone fired in the office at Kruger Automotive or whatever, because he's like, George, you always leave me wanting more. And that's exactly what the Packers did. They left us wanting more from last year. I always have to find a Seinfeld reference. It's just you can connect it to everything. So my apologies for digressing, Gil. But it's fun to see what they're messing with. And what kind of I heard that's interesting is Jordan Morgan. They're definitely trying him at all sorts of different positions. The first-round pick out of Arizona. They tried him a little bit at right tackle on Tuesday when it was open to the media. So it's good to see where they're trying to figure out where this guy best fits and what they have along the offensive line too.
Yeah, and, it's interesting because Rasheed Walker seems to be very determined to hold on to his starting job. Everybody seems to be praising where he's at this point. They have to find a spot for Jordan Morgan. You don't draft a guy in the first round not to play him. The question is, where does he best fit in and how long will it take him to be ready to be a starter in this league and for this team?
And you never know with first-round picks and high picks in Green Bay where these guys, just because you're a first or second-round pick doesn't mean you're going to play right away. No. You'd like to see Jordan Morgan possibly play. You got to think that he's going to be in the running for the right guard job. If maybe right tackle, if they move Zach Tom to center. There's just so many moving pieces that could happen along that offensive line. Really, Elton Jenkins is the only guy, and Zach Tom. They're the only guys who have safe their jobs, their starting jobs in the offensive line are safe. Elton Jenkins is, you can pretty much pencil him in at left guard. Zach Tom, we know what he can do at right tackle. Maybe he moves to center. Maybe he moves to guard as well. We will see. But another thing that stood out a little bit to me from what we heard at OTAs from Tuesday when it was open to the media, where no Kenny Clark or Jair Alexander with the ones on defense on Tuesday. Jair was out, but he's been present all of OTAs, which is fantastic to see. Eric Wilson was the third starting linebacker with the ones on Tuesday. That's kind of surprising, Gil. Edgerrin Cooper, there's been a lot of praise and everything like that, but I think it's just a matter of, hey, Eric Wilson's been here, he's done that, and they're moving Edgerrin Cooper slowly along, and training camp will be able to tell more if Edgerrin Cooper is ready or not.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, none of the rookies are at the top of the depth chart. They don't
No.
want them there. They want them to earn that spot. They don't want to say, okay, you were drafted in the second round, you're handed this position. No, you have to earn it. You have to beat out the guy who was there previously, even if it is, Eric Wilson, who last year was fourth on the depth chart, only really saw action on defense when injuries struck, at the position. But I think that's a good mindset to establish, to have the young players have to earn that starting position, even if it may be a little bit of a formality in some respect. You got to make them earn it. And I think that makes them a little hungry, and it gives the veterans a chance to say, hey, not so fast. I'm going to work hard and try to hold on to my job.
And you got to think that's the same case at the safety spot, where obviously Xavier McKinney, he's been in the league, he's done it. He's the highest paid safety in football for a reason now, and big things are expected out of him. But opposite of that was Anthony Johnson Jr. lining up with the ones where he had an interception during his rookie year. He had one of 7 interceptions the Packers had as a team last year. Very low amount, but hey, man, I mean, that's 12% of the total interceptions that he had, or whatever the math is. We're not here to do math. But you got to think, though, obviously, you would like to see Javon Bullard in that spot eventually, or Evan Williams, the 4th-round rookie safety out of Oregon, or Keaton Oladapo, the 5th-round rookie out of Oregon State. There's going to be a heck of a battle going on, and for us, this is just, and for fans in general who are following OTAs, just because you see a guy starting right now with the ones at OTAs doesn't mean that he's going to be the starter when they open the season in Sao Paulo, Brazil in September.
Yeah, no. And again, it's a process. This is the starting line. And, this is not necessarily where you end up in the finish line, but this is where you're starting. And then the competition begins. Like you said, they haven't even put pads on yet. So, we are still in the very early stages of things. And I think especially on defense, when you're installing a whole different system with a different defensive coordinator, a different 4-man front instead of a 3-man front, a little bit more aggressive, more blitzes, the whole package that Jeff Hafley is putting in, you're installing concepts now and just trying to teach guys, this is where you line up. These are your keys. This is what your responsibility is on this play. If the running back goes here, you do this. If you see the guard pull, you do this. All of those things, are just, they have to become second nature by the time we get to Brazil in week 1. So that process starts now, and that's the fundamental thing you're doing at OTAs.
It's a lot of install. And it seems like, though, the Packers are much further along in the install than they were a year ago. And most of these guys are back from last year's team that almost played for a shot at a Super Bowl and almost played for an NFC title last year. Jordan Love, he spoke to the media on Tuesday after OTA practice. This seems to be a tight group, Gil, from everything you've heard, where the attendance has been great. Matt LaFleur is just loving all the energy. Love told the media on Thursday, said the bond's been outstanding. There's a ton of energy in the building. Since he's been with the Packers, this is entering year 5 for him, and this is the closest the team has ever been. And that's the major positive. I don't think you go out of your way to say that if things are bad. If things are bad, you just don't say anything like, hey, we're working through stuff. We're getting to know each other.
Right.
But no, there's clearly something good brewing here.
There is. And I think, there are some reasons for that. The fact that this team is all very young, that so many of these guys are in their first, second, or third year. They all sort of are the same age. That's a bonding thing. They probably know each other from different football camps in college and high schools and from the Senior Bowl and all of that kind of stuff. We love Senior Bowl guys, right?
Oh, heck yeah. Jaden Reed, baby. Jordan Morgan, baby.
Yeah. But I think that's part of it. And I think I got to give credit to Matt LaFleur, and I got to give credit to Jordan Love, because ever since he became the de facto starter, he has done things the right way. He's always there for OTAs. Last year, he had the receiving, passing camp where he had his young guys plus Aaron Jones, who was with the team then, out to California to work during the offseason. He seems to be invested in team unity, in bonding, in getting this team on the same page. And, when a guy is going to be your leader, you need that from him.
You need those guys you've been to battle with, that you fought through adversity with, you've won with, you've lost with, you've laughed with, you've cried with. Yeah, there's something with football where it's just the closer you are outside of the off the field and in the locker room, the closer and better you're going to be on the field. It's just you just know that if you know the guy next to you has your back, it's like, hey, if I screw up, the guy next to me is gonna help me out. He's gonna pick me up if I do something or tell me what to do, and holding guys accountable too. It's a good thing. It's not going to be all peachy keen. It's not going to be all roses and flowers all the time or anything like that. But it's good to have a lot of trust on the football field. You need that more than anything in football. There's 11 variables on the field at a time on your team in football. That's a lot more variables than basketball. It's a lot more than baseball, where baseball, I mean, yeah, you got 9 guys on defense, but they're all spread out. It's a little different there. But just to have that chemistry and just knowing what you have behind you and knowing who you have having your back is just a huge thing. But speaking of Jordan Love, Gil, Packers general manager Brian Gutekunst, he was on 97.3 The Game in Wisconsin on Tuesday. He was asked about the contract situation with Love. He had said, we're in those conversations right now. Both parties, meaning the Packers and Jordan Love, want the same thing. We'd like to get this done before training camp for sure. And to me, that's a good sign that, hey, it's not a matter of if this deal is going to get done. It's when it's going to get done.
Yeah, and it looks like both sides are on the same page, more or less. They're working on this. You got to cross your T's and dot your I's and make sure this deal works as well as it can for everybody. Where they want to place the big cap hit, where they want to go light on the cap. All of these things have to be taken into consideration. How much money is guaranteed? How many years do you want to go for? But it seems to me that everybody is trying to accomplish the same thing. And it just sounds like both sides are optimistic that this will get done. And the thing I love about it is you want to put it to bed before training camp starts.
Yeah.
So it's not a distraction. You know, there are so many things that can be a distraction. You don't need to add to that list.
And this is business as usual for the Packers. The amount of times Aaron Rodgers got a new deal right before training camp or right before offseason programs was always significant. It's obvious. And yeah, that is the most important position on the field in the NFL. You got to make sure that guy is locked up and doesn't even have a chance to sniff the open market when he's eligible to become a free agent. It's business. That's business as usual. That's status quo in the NFL. So hearing though from Brian Gutekunst, where it's like, yeah, like pretty much saying we're getting there. We're going to get there. It's a process, and we still got a little bit of time before training camp, but it's going to get done before training camp for sure.
Yeah, and you know, hopefully it does get done and we turn the page. And look, the way Jordan Love played in the second half of last year, you want him here for a good long time.
Yeah.
And that's what Gutekunst has to do. And, you know, think about it. So few teams even get back-to-back franchise quarterbacks to get back-to-back. And it's still a little too early to say Jordan Love is a franchise quarterback. But boy, in the second half of last year, he certainly showed he has the potential and that he's on the cusp of accomplishing that. If he can really do that, 3 straight, you know, franchise quarterbacks is a real rare gem. And it basically is the foundation for why the Packers have been competitive for the last 32 plus years.
And there's going to be some people who are worried about where, it was Jordan Love's last half of the season, just a flash in the pan. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Where I went to that game when they played at Vegas on Monday Night Football, and Jordan Love threw 3 interceptions that night. But you know what's crazy? Max Crosby, who's one of the best defensive players in football, the guy's an outstanding player. They had Jordan Love. He had Jordan Love in hell that whole night, and yet Max Crosby is saying, and Devontae Adams too, who former Packer now with the Raiders. They're both on podcasts saying this dude's got it. Like, this dude is a dude. Ignore the 3 interceptions that he had when it was the first half of the season, when clearly the offense was still trying to figure things out and get things together. And he had maybe his worst game as a pro, and he still is getting praise from the other side. We're like, yeah, like we got lucky essentially, where it's like, this guy is going to be a stud, but they know what Jordan Love is. Where I feel like when you hear that from a peer, especially someone on the other side was like, hey, we won that game and we put him in hell, but he's still really good. You don't go out of your way to say that. You really don't.
No. And you know, even if you look at some of the veteran players a year ago, before Jordan Love was even the starter, where you had Aaron Jones and Devondre Campbell saying, oh, yeah, this guy's better than a lot of the starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Yeah. And all they did was see him in practice in what? He started one game, came off the bench in one or two others.
Yeah.
It just comes across to me that he does things the right way, both on and off the field. And, that doesn't guarantee success, but it usually means you maximize your potential. And he's got a lot of potential. So far, so good. We obviously need to see more. I'm not ready to call him the next Aaron Rodgers or the next Brett Favre even the next Lynn Dickey, but let's see where he goes from here. So far, he has looked pretty darn good.
And that's obviously not fair to Jordan Love either, where Jordan Love is Jordan Love. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not Brett Favre. He's not Lynn Dickey. He's Jordan Love. And that's where we got to focus on, where just let this guy grow organically and naturally, and let's just see what he could do moving forward. But obviously the quarterback situation looks to be in really good shape in Green Bay. The kicking situation, not so much. Obviously, Anders Carlson, we were all in on the youth movement last year. I was all for it, Gil. He didn't have any competition in training camp last year. He missed a big kick in the fourth quarter in that divisional round loss in Santa Clara against the 49ers last year. It's led to some competition now in OTAs. It's going to go through training camp, where they brought in Greg Joseph from the Minnesota Vikings, Jack Podlesny, a former kicker from Georgia, because, of course, the Packers love Georgia Bulldogs, and a good kicking competition going on right now. And on Tuesday during OTAs, when it was open to the media, Carlson had a great day. Matt LaFleur even said afterwards that it was Carlson's day. He was 3 of 3 on 50-plus yard field goal attempts to end practice on Tuesday. This is good to see, Gil, where, hey, Mason Crosby, even, who was a great kicker for a long time in Green Bay, they even needed to bring in a guy for competition just to make sure, like, hey, keep the pressure on a little bit. Maybe pressure and that competition is going to be good for Anders Carlson. And if it is, we're in for an improvement at kicker this year.
Yeah, and look, he struggled in the second half, especially of last year. It was interesting. He looked shaky in training camp and preseason, looked great for the first half of the regular season, and then got inconsistent again in the second half of the regular season. Competition, you could either respond by saying, oh, crap, they have no confidence in me, woe is me, or you could go out there and say, to heck with this, I'm going to nail down this job, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I win it. So far, it looks like Anders Carlson is taking that second approach. And look, the Packers clearly want Carlson to win this job, but he still has to do it.
Yeah, and he's got a strong leg. There's no question about that. It's just a matter of fundamentally just keeping things consistent and keeping things together, where he's got – the guy could boot it from close to 60 yards, depending on the weather conditions and everything like that. But Greg Joseph, he's been a veteran kicker who's bounced around the league for a long time, and he's had a job in the NFL for a long time for a reason, but he's also bounced around the league for a long time for a reason too, where you don't want that guy being your full-time kicker. He struggled inside a dome in Minnesota. Yes. I'm just saying, where Jack Podlesny, we don't know about him, but the Packers seem to give the benefit of the doubt to Georgia Bulldogs, the former Georgia Bulldogs, and it's a guy who has shown some flashes in camp, and it's going to be interesting, though, like in the preseason coming up, Gil, how do you see that essentially being – how do you see the kicking rotation going? Whereas Anders Carlson going to be the first kicker in every preseason game, or are they going to switch that every game in the preseason?
I get the feeling, and it's just a hunch, they will let go one kicker before training camp starts. I
can see that too.
Training camp with two, and then they'll probably alternate those two for the first two preseason games, and then whoever's doing better will probably be the kicker to start the final preseason game. Who knows? They could cut all three of them and bring in, completely new guys. I know Brian Gutekunst said that was not off the table. What was it, about a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
But I think Carlson will be one, and then it's a question of which one of the other two gets the job. But, hey, maybe you go with all three to start training camp. Most teams do too.
And maybe bring in Brett Conway. Just no, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Zendejas available?
Yeah, right. And I love Mason Crosby, but you saw him kicking last year, and there's a reason the Packers moved on where just doesn't have the power anymore. And when it gets to the nitty-gritty in Green Bay in November, December, when it gets colder, you need a kicker with a little more leg than Mason Crosby. So love the guy, but time to move on for sure. You just hope, though, Rich Bisaccia, whatever he did with his brother, Anders Carlson, older brother Daniel Carlson, he could do the same thing with Anders. And Daniel Carlson, I would legit say he's a top 3 NFL kicker. He's probably a top 3 kicker. He may be the best one outside of Justin Tucker. And if Rich Bisaccia can go back to the well, find that pixie dust, sprinkle it a little bit on Anders Carlson, and Anders Carlson can rise to the level of competition and really exceed expectations and show immediate improvement since a year ago, the Packers are in for a treat.
Look, the thing to me is that gives me reasons for optimism. It's mostly mental. There is no question that he has the leg strength, that he has the ability to physically to be a great kicker, but psychologically, can he stay even keeled? Can he, push out those distractions and just be consistent and be clutch? If he can do those things, he could have a long and bright future in Green Bay. If not, bring on the next guy. That's the nature of the business.
We're hoping it works, obviously. This is what we're rooting for, because it seems like a good dude, and he's obviously got some good NFL bloodlines with his brother kicking as well as he has for the Vegas Raiders. After he had a shot with the Minnesota Vikings, 2 games into his NFL career, got cut by the Vikings, and has really just been superb ever since. So you're hoping for the best for Anders Carlson. But just before we wrap up, some other injuries and updates from week 3 of OTAs. Elton Jenkins, Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, they all were absent with excused absences in week 2. They all returned in week 3. Lucas Van Ness returned after breaking, Gil, just the tip. That's Matt LaFleur's saying. That's what Matt LaFleur said, just the tip of his thumb. Zach Tom, Tucker Kraft, they were both still out with injuries. Jair Alexander, he sat out during OTAs this week. 5th-round rookie safety Keaton Oladapo. We didn't know why he was out the first 2 weeks, but he confirmed he broke his toe during the combine, and he should be back for training camp later this summer. A guy who the Packers, or a lot of draft nicks essentially were saying they got a bit of a steal with this guy in round 5. I'm excited to see what happens there with Keaton Oladapo. And then Josh Jacobs, he was dealing with a hamstring issue the first couple weeks of OTAs. He was full go in week 3, running with the ones, and that's encouraging to see. It looks like he's got a lot of burst and a lot of positives there where he's going to make things a little better for the offense. But it sounded like there was some miscommunication between him and Jordan Love, but that's just a matter of that's why OTAs are here, just to get that feel down.
Yeah, get those kinks worked out, get everybody on the same page. And look, for Jacobs, this is a new offense. This is a new set of teammates. He's got to make those adjustments. We'll get there. It's still, 3 months until opening week. So we'll be there.
And the Packers, they signed 2nd-round Georgia safety Javon Bullard this week. The only first-round pick left, or the only pick left to sign his first-round pick, Jordan Morgan, from the rookie class. He has yet to sign his contract. Let me ask you, Gil, who signs the contract first, Jordan Love or Jordan Morgan?
I go with Captain Morgan.
Yeah, Captain Morgan. I think that's fair. I think a deal gets done for sure. I don't think it's going to be down to the wire or anything like that, but just get the deal done, and let's just focus on football coming up soon with training camp coming up in about a month. And speaking of training camp, the Packers announced the first practice at training camp will be on Monday, July 22nd at 10:30 a.m. Gil, get your bike ready.
I'm always ready for Packers training camp, so bring it. Yes.
Do you got the playing cards in the spokes or anything like that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, make that motorcycle
cards. What do you want? Yeah.
I'm terrified of motorcycles, so that's the closest I'd ever get to a motorcycle. Get an old card. I remember a Butch Husky baseball card. Putting that in, and it sounded like a motorcycle. It was music to my ears, but obviously I had to wear a helmet too, so I didn't feel as cool. But hey, got to protect the noggin.
There you go.
So, anyways, training camp Monday, July 22nd, and then some news outside of the Packers, but related to the Packers. Former center Corey Linsley was cut by the LA Chargers on Wednesday, the day we're recording today. Lindsley has dealt with a lot of injury issues since he left the Packers a few years ago. Gil, what are your thoughts on this? And you got to think this is probably the end for Corey Lindsley in the NFL.
Yeah, unfortunately. And he's had a really solid career, always liked Lindsley. And, he certainly did his thing with the Packers for, 7 seasons. And when he was healthy, he was a really good lineman, had his Pro Bowl years and his All-Pro years, and then went on to join the Chargers. I wish him all the best.
It's a bummer, man. Corey Lindsley was a mauler. He was so good. And he was a first-team All-Pro in his final year in Green Bay. Obviously earned himself a big contract with the Chargers, and it was a second-team All-Pro his first year with the Chargers. He played 14 games in 2022. Only played 3 games, though, last year. The injury bug finally caught up to him. Could the Packers have used Lindsley his first 2 years in LA and in 2021, 2022? Absolutely. They would have loved to have had Corey Lindsley. I would have loved to have Corey Lindsley, but it's just a matter of it's time. He's going to be 33 pretty soon. I'll say one of my favorite memories of Corey Lindsley is you always saw where the lineman would celebrate his birthday because his birthday always happened around training camp, and they bring the birthday cake during training camp. Nice way to blow off some steam, right? Eat some cake and celebrate your buddy.
Absolutely. And you think Corey Lindsley makes the Packers Hall of Fame?
I think he should.
I think so.
I think he should. 7 years, and he was the guy. He rarely missed a game. That's the thing is, I believe by my count, he missed. I believe I'm doing a real quick count. 8 regular season games in his 7 years in Green Bay. Yeah, and he was just so dependable. He knew you knew you could rely on him. He was such a rock there at center. He was the foundation. It all started with him, and he was so good at center. And it's a bummer, man. A guy like him and Brian Bulaga, who both went to the Chargers after leaving Green Bay and both dealt with their own injuries, and their times kind of came to an abrupt end with the LA Chargers. And for Corey Lindsley, if this certainly is the end, hats off, man. He's gonna be great outside of football too. Him and his wife do so much charity work, and they were so involved in the community in Green Bay. I got nothing but good things to say about him, and he's a former Ohio State Buckeye too. So OHIO.
I won't hold that against him. So yeah.
yeah. He was the same way. I love Rashawn Gary and Charles Woodson. Those guys went to Michigan. So that's shots fired. I know, Gil. I know, but best of luck to Corey Lindsley going forward. Gil, before we wrap up with some trivia, what articles do you have coming up online for Packers Post and Cheesehead TV?
Did a piece on the 2 tight ends, Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave, and the way Matt LaFleur was enthused about integrating both of them into the offense at the same time. Also doing a piece on Bo Melton, so watch for that.
I love Big Play Bo. And don't forget about Ben Simmons. I met his family before that divisional round game against the Niners. I'm sorry. Did I say Ben Simmons?
You did.
I'm in NBA mode. I'm sorry. Ben Sims. I met Ben Sims' family before that San Francisco game. Really nice family. Ben Sims, you got to incorporate him in the article a little bit too. He showed some flashes at undrafted rookie. But
I would love to see him continue to do well. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not a publisher or anything like that. Don't listen to me. I'm not going to mess with the author, though, Gil. You do what you got to do. All right. So I'll keep my nose out of it. But you ready for some trivia, Gil?
Yes, sir.
So we talked about the Packers' current starting quarterback, Jordan Love, who looks to be the long-term answer under center for the foreseeable future. Packers, they've had obviously numerous Hall of Famers at the QB position throughout their deep history. Guys like Arnie Herber, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers will certainly be enshrined in Canton after his career comes to a close. And, of course, there's Bart Starr. Starr began his career with the Packers in 1956, a playing career which would go on to last 16 wonderful seasons. Over those 16 years, how many times did Starr throw for more than 3,000 yards in a season?
0. I know this one.
Yeah, you nailed it. 0. The closest he ever got was in 1962 when he threw for a career high 2,438 yards, threw for more than 2,000 yards 6 times in his Packers career. To put things into perspective, Gil, regarding how much of a passing league the NFL has become over time, Starr's career season in 62 would have placed him 24th in the league in passing yards last year, just behind Josh Dobbs, who was in and out of the starting lineup in 2023, and just ahead of Kirk Cousins and Joe Burrow, both very good NFL quarterbacks. But both their seasons were cut short due to injuries. And since 2008, when Aaron Rodgers became a full-time starter in the NFL, he threw for less than Starr's career high twice in his career. That was this past season, obviously, when he threw 4 passes before tearing his Achilles for the Jets on Monday Night Football. And then in 2017, when his season was cut short due to a collarbone injury. So the NFL has gone a long way, and Bart Starr was a legend of his time, but right now he'd just be kind of buried in the stat sheets.
Yeah, again, the game is completely different. Only played 12 games a year when he started, went up to 14. Now they're at 17. He never threw more than 16 touchdown passes in a season. But when you had Jim Taylor and Paul Hornung, you didn't need to throw the ball that much.
Heck no, and a bullying defense too, which hopefully the 2024 Packers can kind of emulate coming up this year. I don't think, Gil, we mentioned last week where the 1929 Packers allowed only 22 points in the season. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but I'd welcome it.
Oh, yeah.
Do you imagine that? You just got to score a touchdown a game and we'll be good. We'll be fine.
Anders Carlson, 1. That's it.
Anders, just put one through the uprights and we're good, man. We're good. We got it from here.
I'd love it, but I'm not holding my breath.
I know. Yeah.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, that is going to do it for us. We'll be right back here next week. Follow us on Twitter at GoPackers, at GBPackersOn, on all things Packers, or to ask us questions. Or you can email us at gbpackerssean@gmail.com. Make sure you're subscribed to Packers Talk on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Big thanks to PackersTalk.com for powering our show. Thank you for listening. Until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.